gentlemen. Oh, a Nissan GTR magically appeared in the time I had my back turned. That's the kind of magic we are experiencing here tonight. At the Mitty, we are live from the 2018 Classic Motorsports Mitty presented by Hagerty, and a very rare treat for us at GRM Live is a live studio audience. So let everybody hear you at home, folks. All right, so I hear that I'm blowing away the headphone users out there. So let me turn down a little bit of our audio feed here. And see if we can keep the folks at home hearing well. So here's what's going on tonight, folks. We really appreciate you guys being here. As you know, the featured mark at the Mitty this year is Nissan. Nissan has a fairly rich and storied racing history. They have been kind enough to share a couple of automobiles from their Heritage Collection with us here this evening. We are honored to have these cars here. We are fortunate to have these cars here, and we are very, very proud to be able to share them with you in the condition that they won so many races in throughout the years. Folks, I want to tell you a little bit about the show we do every week. Normally this show would be on Wednesday nights. This is Grassroots Motorsports Live, presented by CRC Industries, Coney Shocks, and Auto Books Aero Books. We do a live weekly broadcast right from the shops and offices of Grassroots Motorsports Magazine. So all of the stuff you're seeing at the Mitty here this weekend, all of these good times we can have them together. You and I, live on a Wednesday night, come hang out with us. It's a lot of fun. We've got a great group of people that watch online and interact with the show, so we really appreciate them tuning in on a special night. We appreciate you guys being here live tonight. So, you know what? Let's just get going. Let's say hi to Dave here from the Nissan Heritage Collection. Let me find his microphone. Come on over. Yeah, you're waiting for applause. I like this guy already.
Thank you, you're so kind.
All right, so.
Where do we start?
We're overloading the front end. Yeah, so I'm just checking to see if the audio is good. So let's start here. Let me adjust this down a little bit more so we are not hurting the folks that we are trying to make love us. Okay, I think we're in good shape. So tell us a little bit. Let's walk over here behind this 510. This is a 510 that has won a Trans Am championship.
This is the 510.
This is the 510.
The one that won.
That won a Trans Am championship. Owned and maintained still by Nissan.
Yes, the Nissan Heritage Collection in Nashville, Tennessee is where we keep all of our vehicles. And our philosophy at Nissan is a little different than some of the other manufacturers. We don't try to create trailer queens. We really pride ourselves on having strong condition 2 drivers, as we'd say in the hobby. A little patina is okay. A little patina is especially okay in vintage race cars because, let's face it, the race car leads a hard life. So we have done quite a few things to make sure that we keep her running good and looking good, but we have not restored the car at all.
So what does a Heritage Collection mean to Nissan? I mean, there's plenty of cars over there that are X-race cars of various manufacturers here at a big vintage race event like the Mitty. Why is it special? Why is it important for a company like Nissan to maintain their own heritage, spending corporate money on keeping these cars alive?
Well, it's a connection with the past that we use in marketing all the time to introduce new models. I mean, this was our best-selling mid-size sedan, the 510, in the early 70s. That would make it an Ultima today, right, in the marketplace, or a Sentra, basically on physical size. But it's important that we maintain those connections.
So if you had to pick moments from the racing history of Nissan, give me some ones that stand out. When did Nissan turn various corners? And what do you think those moments meant to Nissan as a company? I mean, obviously, beating BMW, beating
Yeah,
those...
I mean, this wasn't supposed to happen, right? I mean, Mr. Morton's driving talent and the BRE team put together such a program that, I mean, I don't think we thought it at all. You know, it's like the team that qualifies for the playoffs and then wins the whole championship. You know, it just wasn't supposed to happen. In automotive terms, I would say, to give an analogy that people might be able to relate to, if a company like Kia, for example, said, hey, we're going to go into NASCAR this year, well, everybody would kind of, you know, snicker under their breath and say, yeah, sure you are. And then they did it, and then they won. I mean, we were up against Alfa Romeo, BMW, Triumph, all the established European brands in the, you know, the under 2.5 liter class. So it was just a tremendous effort by the team. You know, obviously I wasn't here then.
So give us an idea of what the year looks like for these cars in the Nissan Heritage Collection. Are any of them still used on track? Are they going to shows? What does the life cycle of these cars look like?
Yes, we take a variety of vehicles out to concours events if it's appropriate, and driving events around the country. John, many times in the past since he won the championship in it. And it'll be going to Monterey again, you know, later in the year. So I'm going to give you a list of all the events, but it might bore the audience.
Well, let's John in here and have a little bit about his car. So,
Thank you so much. Well, you got your own mic. All right.
John, it's good to see you. Thank you for being our Grand Marshal at the Mitty this year. Thanks for coming out, and thanks for letting us come on over here and let's get in behind this thing that you won a championship in. So tomorrow night you're going to come back. We're going to do another show. We're going to talk a lot about you tomorrow night. Tonight I really want to hear about these cars, and I really want to hear about what it was like to drive this thing. When you first got in this car, did you know it was something special? Did you know it was a championship contender?
No, not at all. I thought we were going to get our asses kicked. Is that okay?
So did we.
Yeah. We went to the first race. We missed the first race because the car wasn't painted. The first race was at Lime Rock, and I remember working till about maybe midnight one night, and I was the only one left, and I thought, if I finish it tonight, we can go home, because I did a lot of work on this car.
Yeah, so you were the driver, but you were also working on the car.
Yeah, I actually did probably 70% of the work on this car. And Peter said, go home. We're not racing at Lime Rock. And I was a little dejected, and I went home. And he was right, because he was going to present an image like this car presents now, but it wasn't going to be painted. It was just going to be a white car. And so we skipped the first race, and we went to the second race, which was Briar, New Hampshire. And I was thinking, we don't have a chance. But we got the pole. Wow. And I thought, well, we do have a chance. And I was shocked, I think, as much as everybody else was. And we led the race and had a big lead, we had a rear axle failure, and the Alpha won. The next race was a week later in Mid-Ohio, and we blew an engine about an hour and a half before the race, changed it in 45 minutes, and won the race. So that was the beginning.
So it sounds like your first experience with this car was a car that was fast on the stopwatch, but you maybe didn't like all that much. Is that kind of what I'm hearing here, that you were having a hard time wrapping yourself around it as a driver?
Well, I guess you'd say I'm not the world's biggest optimist, but I didn't. When we got the pole, I thought we've got something here, and it proved that I didn't dislike the car. It handled great. I just didn't think it would compete with the Alphas and the BMWs. But after that first race, I knew it would compete if it would become reliable, and it did. We won 6 races that year, and in a very close thing, we tied Alpha for the championship with 60 points, but we won more races, so we were we were the winners.
So give me an idea of what it's like behind the wheel of this thing. I mean, I've driven small sedans before. I know they tend to be, you know, they like to be thrown around a little bit. They like to be driven hard. But what does this car do well? What do you maybe wish it did better on a racetrack? What's it like being behind the wheel and dicing with people in a car like this?
You know, I couldn't have asked for a better car. This GTP car over here, I couldn't have asked for a better car. Nobody could have. But in their categories, they were both as good as it gets in the period.
So walk us through some of the systems here. I mean, obviously there's a lot of memories inside this car, but just, you know, seeing the inside of this car and seeing how Spartan it is compared to a modern, even a car like that GTP car, which we're going to talk about shortly here. You know, that's still a 30-year-old car, but much more sort of outfitted safety-wise inside than something like this. Give us a modern equivalent to how much this car is prepared. Is this, you know, is this sort of like an MX-5 Cup or a Continental Cup level of preparation? I mean, we still have a stock tub here, it looks like. How much preparation are we seeing in a car like this?
Well, the thing that this car attests to is the quality of the basic car, because as you say, not much was done. It's got a roll cage, a very basic roll cage. Today, it wouldn't pass muster with the SCCA because it doesn't have bars that protect the driver. So you'd say it wasn't a safe car. I never got hurt in this. I damn near got killed in that one, which had quite a bit of safety equipment, but most of it failed. My helmet came off. The car caught on fire. What else? There were some other. The fire system didn't go off, but the safety belts held, so that's safe. And it landed right side up, so that I didn't burn to death. So everything worked out well. But this car is, you know, I think a testament to how good the Datsun 510 was in its basic configuration. We had good horsepower, and I think more than anything, we had the best team.
And it sounds like you guys were fairly fast out of the box. Was there a sorting process to it? Were there any particular issues you were chasing from a sorting perspective, or was it just sort of polishing, you know, tenths of a second here and there off, and the whole package was basically good from the beginning, or were there any issues you were chasing throughout the development?
You know, well, there wasn't a lot of time to develop it. Like I said, we missed the first race because the car wasn't finished. We did very little testing, and the only problem we had was the CV joints in the rear axle melted. Well, we had a 45-second lead, so the next race we had we changed the axles, and that's the last problem we ever had.
Wow.
We had some engine problems on occasion, but nothing. You know, we lost an oil pump once, and broke a crankshaft once, and we won 2 races. We'd lose a race. We'd win 2, and we'd lose a race, and that was the pattern the whole season. And Alpha would gain points because they had lots of cars in the race. We only had 2 cars that were garnering any points. So it was an exciting season, but we had the best car.
So was there a point in that season when you're sort of looking at the rest of the schedule, you're looking at where you are in the points, and you're starting to think, hey, this thing might kind of happen here, or did you just sort of put that out of your mind? How does that affect you mentally as a driver, seeing halfway through the season, man, we're in this thing. This is kind of starting to happen here.
Well, you know, I don't remember all of my emotions, but I knew toward the end we had a chance, but it was sort of slim. Alpha threw everything at us in the last race, and they even had an illegal gas tank. They crossed the finish line first, but we had made a pit stop, and they had never run the whole race without a stop. This one they did, so Peter was pretty suspicious of them, and although he didn't technically protest, the SCCA was suspicious as well, and had the Alpha drain its tank. The Alpha crossed the line and shut the fuel pump off, so it would act like it ran out of gas, had it towed in, and then the SCCA drained the fuel and put about 18 gallons in a 15-gallon tank. So we were deemed the winner, and we won the championship. As I said, we tied in points, but we had 6 wins, and they had fewer.
And so one of our viewers online wants to hear a little bit about the Laguna Seca race against Horst Quetsch. Anything specific you remember about that? I know there were a lot of fantastic drivers, a lot of legendary battles throughout that year. Anything pop to your mind about that race?
Well, what I just explained was about that race with the fuel tank. But the thing is, we went into the race. I had the pole. Just as an aside, this car raced 19 times in its career. It won. It had the pole 16 times, and it won 12 races, and it led every race it was ever in. So
wow.
It's kind of a special car, especially for me, because I'm really not that good. That race, the Laguna Seca race, we both knew that whoever won was going to win the championship. It came down to that. And there was some desperation on the part of Alpha, I think, because they did have that fuel tank, and some desperation on my part because we had to win, and at first I thought we hadn't won. And we had some, we ran into each other a few times, but it wasn't like, well, maybe it was malicious, but it wasn't, it was just good racing.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk about that beast over there, which you have also driven, and I'd love to find any comparison we could between this car and that car. And on some level, every race car is the same in that you're making it go around a track as fast as you can. But that is a damn spaceship over there compared to this thing. So yeah. I can't wait to hear some stories about that. So you guys take a break, get a drink of water. Thanks for joining us up here. We are going to talk a little bit about once again, the show we do every week, folks, every Wednesday night, 9 p.m., live from KGRM Studios in Ormond Beach, Florida. You can see all of this same type of excitement. Sometimes we're working on project cars. Sometimes we're interviewing other famous people from the motorsports community. Join us, please, will you, every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. And please take a second to check out the folks that support this show. Folks like CRC Industries. You can see our can of CRC display cleaner over there. That's the stuff we use to clean all of our camera lenses, all of our monitors before the show. We use a lot of CRC products around the shop. They're a fantastic company to work with, and they are great supporters of us. Also, our friends out west at Autobooks Aerobooks. Check them out at autobooks-aerobooks.com. The best bookstore in the entire world, bar none. Books, magazines, collectibles, all kinds of cool stuff. And Coney Shocks, Lee Grimes, come on up here for 1 second. Usually, Coney stops by via videotape in the middle of the show to offer us some tech tips. And tonight, because he is out here at the Mitty, say hi to Lee Grimes from Coney, everybody.
Thank you very much.
So this is very exciting. We're doing the Coney Tech Tip live tonight, Lee. We talked a little bit about this earlier, but what I wanted to, so we have a lot of folks here that were on our tour today.
Absolutely.
A lot of classic automobiles, maybe a lot of cars that haven't upgraded their shocks yet. So for somebody that's never put shocks on a car or wants to start making upgrades to a car, how do I go shopping for shocks? There's a lot of choices out there. There's adjustable stuff. There's coilovers. How do I know what I need in an aftermarket shock?
Absolutely. I guess the first thing that you need to give thought to is really how you use the car. Is it a daily driver? Is it something that's maybe going to get mostly street use, but a little autocross or a little weekend warrior track event, something like that? Really identify what it is that you've got and what do you want to do with it. Are you going to keep it at a stock ride height? Are you going to lower it somewhat? Do some other modifications and so on like that. And that's going to really help you decide what it is that you need. An adjustable shock, it will give you a good performance shock in general. Is going to make the car respond better. It's going to make it tighter. It's going to make it more crisp and responding. Just more awake and aware of what's going out there. And that's going to transmit the information to the driver and make the drive more enjoyable and hopefully the car a little bit faster and more fun to drive. So you start with that, with a good idea of what you're at, and then you begin thinking about, are you on a tight budget? Is this a car of low value or a car of relatively high value or something like that? What do you got? What do you want to do with it? From that point, we can go on. If you're going to lower the car, which is very popular, you might want to go. You're going to have increased spring rate to get a little bit lower stance. So you need a bit more rebound damping to control that motion. So you want to be able to up that. Maybe a normal commodity replacement shock isn't going to really last very long if you put a high performance shock on it. Or if you're going to do an event, a track event, something like that. The factory shock or the non-adjustable, the baseline replacement shock isn't going to do that much. So pretty much you follow along. Do you want to go coilover? That's a very popular thing. Probably the majority of our questions here at the event are about coilovers. That gives you the opportunity to change your ride heights. Maybe you might change your spring rates. Now you're getting much more focused on that. And then there an adjustable shock can do. Most of our adjustable shocks are going to be rebound damping. In a true racing situation, you might use a compression adjustable shock as well to help maximize the grip of the tire on the surface. So there's a number of things like that, but really it comes down to what's the usage, what do you want to do with the car, and what's around. There's a lot of good options. There's some flashy shocks that aren't very good inside, and there's some not so flashy shocks that are pretty darn good inside. So find that, talk to somebody that's got one of the cars, talk to a tech person, call up the tech guy at Coney or at one of our competitors, and just discuss what your needs are, and they can help guide you.
And if they don't have a tech guy, just hang up the phone at that point.
That's right. That's right. Call Lee. There you go. I'll talk to anybody.
All right, thank you. And you guys still have a sale going on?
Yes, we've got a sale with a rebate going on through the end of May. So if you happen to be in the market to buy shocks, between $30 and $70 rebate, just send in the paperwork and get you taken care of. But again, thanks very much for the opportunity. I've got to say something.
I know you're a huge fan.
I am a uber geek of this car, and I'm very happy to say that this car has Coney shocks on it. When it came out of the warehouse before it went to, he took it to Laguna Seca for a vintage race. I got a call that said, "Are you going to be in Los Angeles? I want you to take a look at this and see what." And I was there immediately. To me, this is a very important car, and amazing stuff.
Well, Lee, thanks for being here tonight, and thanks for being a supporter of the show.
Thanks, man.
And I'll give you the forearm shake there.
Thanks.
And let's get back to it. If somebody could be Lee Grimes, everybody. If somebody could be so kind as to flip my lights about 90 degrees over to point at this bad mofo right here.
Thanks, Lee. Maybe we should talk to you about getting some Coney shocks in some of the Heritage cars. Good.
We're making a love connection
Come
here.
visit us in Nashville.
All right. So this is this is not only an amazing piece of racing history, this is an amazing engineering exercise. This is an amazing aerodynamic exercise. This is 19 feet by 8 feet of pure excess.
Yes, it's
right
a big
here.
horse, that's for sure.
This is the NPT 8801. Am I correct on that?
And it won the championship. Yep.
So we're looking at a car with over 1,000 horsepower, probably close to 1,200 horsepower, and about 2,000 pounds of weight.
At its lowest level of tune, entry-level tune, about 850, 900. At its top level of tune, about 1,150 horsepower.
So
and it's a 3-liter V6. The basic block was what we were putting in Maximas of the day. In this case, it's bored out to 3.3 liters, and lots of other trickery as well have been done on it. And actually, what you're looking at here is the car as it came off the racetrack after winning its championship.
Oh, really?
It has not been restored. It's original. Down to the tires. The tires are the original tires as well, so they're not exactly race ready at this point. And it went into deep cold storage at Nissan for a while. You know, we went through some financial issues in the mid-90s, and we weren't spending a lot of money on our Heritage Collection at that time. But since then, we brought it out and we cleaned it up. And 2 years ago, we took it to Amelia in a Japanese race car class as a static display, and we won first in class. Last year, we went back to Amelia again, but this time in a GTP specific class, and there were 11 vehicles in the class, and this time it runs, and we fired it up on the show field.
Wow.
And we won the class again.
And
so the next step is to get it on the road and driving.
And so I was talking to Jeremy earlier, when you say fired it up, that's a much more complicated procedure than hopping in the Maxima.
Yeah,
he was saying it's about a 90-minute procedure to actually fire this car.
The easy thing is you fire up a 4,000-watt generator next to the car. That's the easy thing. And you hook that up to a heating pump that pumps the coolant throughout the engine. And it runs for about 45 minutes to an hour, bringing the temperature up to 130 degrees or so, which also warms the oil, at which point you can hit the starter button and she'll fire.
Because as I understand it, the tolerances in the engine at ambient temperature are so tight that you really can't even turn the engine over at ambient temperature.
Essentially zero tolerance, yes.
That is. Let's back up even a little bit more than that. Well, tell me a little bit about what is the decision-making process like for a major company like Nissan to undertake a GTP effort? I mean, this is no small effort.
There is no automobile company on the planet that doesn't recognize the value of motorsports. Everybody understands the value of motorsports, from the old trite expression, you know, win on Sunday, sell on Monday. The harsh reality of running an automobile company is, however, that these are very expensive programs, and they can only be done when times are reasonably lucrative. And so every manufacturer, and Nissan's no different, is guilty of putting their foot on the gas when times are good and taking their foot off when times are not so good, and everybody's done that. And this was a time when we were going for it. You know, we were shooting, this was our moonshot. And also, it's, you know, a class that was not something that most manufacturers expected a Japanese manufacturer to try and tackle. You know, this was highline European Porsche technology of the time. This is what we were going for.
Well, I remember, and got involved heavily, and I would like to think that you know, Nissan was maybe behind some of their decision-making process in encouraging them.
Well, we're chasing each other in the marketplace and chasing each other on the racetrack.
On the racetrack. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about this car's place in the Heritage Collection, and you know, you told us it takes an hour and a half to fire the thing up. What else has to happen to this car throughout the course of the year to keep it in this condition? What's the preservation effort?
We're very careful on how we handle it. You know, there's only a handful of people, myself, Jeremy Stillwell on my staff over here, who are allowed to touch it, get in it. Actually, he's the only one who fits in it. He's so damn skinny, but I can't get in it.
And I have to say, before we even brought the car in here, Jeremy was up here, you know, looking at the, okay, where are we putting this thing? What's that table doing over there? Is there going to be barbecue sauce on this table over here? That's not going anywhere near my damn car. So he was up here completely scouting this entire area here.
Yeah. There we go. Oh, look at that. Friend of yours, I believe.
Yeah, he's got your pit pass.
He's got my pit pass. I can get in tomorrow.
John's 240Z just drove by, and it's backing up. And they put a motor in that thing this afternoon. It sounds like.
They did.
Tell him this story. It's a bit of a sideline here, but this is it.
That's the car.
We just had a drive-by.
I'm going to choke him later.
All we need now is a streaker.
He's trying to impress me that they actually got the motor running. We had a broken connecting rod this morning.
Here it is. Yep, they blew an engine this morning and got an engine in for tonight.
That is fantastic. And yeah.
Very good.
So that's going to tell you a little something about the Nissan Heritage crew in that you guys are not just taking these cars around to shine them up and polish them. You are here hammering on these things from a maintenance perspective, from a keeping them alive perspective.
Yeah, I won't take cars to a concourse that doesn't have a driving event, and if it has a driving event, we will compete in the driving event. Just a road tour or whatever. Everything that we have is turnkey and runs and is safe on the road.
All right, so John, you've driven both these cars. This has got to represent sort of the entire delta of Nissan race car performance. If I had to ask you, what is the most similar thing about these two cars? They're obviously very different to look at, very different in layout, in design. But what is there anything that you can get in both these cars and feel like, okay, these are tied together by some common DNA? What would that be?
Well, they both have steering wheels,
4 wheels,
brake pedals, gas pedals, and clutches. But more important than that, they were both the best of their era. And I'd driven a number of GTP cars. I'd driven the GTP Jaguar, the Lola, the March, the 962 for 2 years. And this was on another level. Chassis was designed not in Japan, but in the United States, actually in El Segundo, California. Yoshi Suzuka did the aerodynamics. The chassis was designed by Trevor Harris. The electronics, which were very sophisticated for their time, were designed by the team owner, Don Devendorf. So it was an all-American effort, except for Yoshi. He was Japanese, but he was kind of a born-again American. And Wayne Hartman did the body. It was really a Southern California car. The engine was built, developed by John Knepp, who sadly passed away last year. He also was instrumental in the 510 preparation and maintenance. John Caldwell's, who is here today, did the car the engine that was subsequent to this engine, the 4-cam engine, that was a derivative of the of Maxima as well.
Right.
So, what's similar? This one goes a lot faster.
So, what do you remember about the first time you put your butt in a GTP car after being in sedans, after being in cars with no aero? What were those first experiences like for you with aero cars? With these cars that were designed as race cars. What was the difference like?
My first experience with a real high downforce car was the Can-Am cars, the single-seat Can-Am cars, which was a fairly smooth transition to the GTP cars. The GTP cars were hotter because they were enclosed, and the aerodynamics increased year by year. This car at the time was far and away the highest downforce car on the track, and we could waste. This is not a particularly slippery car. It was very draggy because the downforce was so high, but we could sacrifice slipperiness because it had so much horsepower. It could pull the thing through the air pretty fast anyway.
I learned something new this spring about this car, and speaking with the people who were involved in its development at the time, is that I forget what the exact road speed was, but it generated over 2,000 pounds of the downforce, which at the time was causing problems with the wheels and bearings and suspension components, putting so much pressure on them.
Yeah, this car could literally, and this isn't the Toyota later could have done it, and possibly some of the cars earlier, if somebody built the right configuration, track could actually drive upside down at a high speed.
Yeah.
But I don't know who the hell would drive it.
cars used to do that.
Yeah,
So-
it was a Hot Wheels figured that out.
So tell us a little track experience with these. I mean, it's one thing for somebody to get in this car and adjust to taking it around a racetrack quickly, but in a GTP race, you've got a dozen other cars out there that are nearly as fast, just as fast, sharing the track with a very wide car, a very fast car, probably a very edgy car that doesn't, you know, it's not a spec Miata that you can kind of lean on people a little bit. So what's the actual wheel-to-wheel experience like with these things? I can only imagine as a driver what it's like to get over that mental hurdle of just getting up to speed with the car and then having to actually go through racecraft with it.
It isn't really that different. You do have a knowledge, just like with an Indy car, you can't touch cars, you know, the other car very often successfully. And it's very much like this, you know, stock cars or sedans. That's part of the deal. But with these, it's not because they have such respect for the other person. It's because they have respect for themselves, and they don't want to get hurt. So these cars are very fragile. And if you've ever watched Formula One, which I'm sure most of you have, it doesn't take much of a little ding to upset the aerodynamics to the point that the thing isn't very effective anymore. And that's the same case with the case with this car too.
So what's the learning curve like between hopping in this thing and starting a development process and getting out on track and thinking to yourself, all right, I got this thing. I mean, you know, I've seen you run MX-5 Cup cars, and you're up to 10/10ths right away. We've all driven a front-wheel drive car in an autocross, and you know you can go out there and go 110% right away. But what's that feeling like when you finally get this thing to the point where you're like, all right, I got this thing. I'm not worried about the car anymore. I'm worried about those other guys. Or do you ever get to that point with a car this complex and this extreme?
You know, I to be honest, I probably never quite got to that point. I think some drivers probably got closer than I did, but it's just, you know, it's a cliche to say it's just another car because it's beyond that, but it's you know, it's something that you signed up to do and you just do it.
If you're going to put it that way, I'm sorry it was such a burden for you to have to drive this thing, John. So,
well, I didn't mean to say it was a burden. I love doing it, but you know, there are times when you're a little nervous about it. Sure. And
so
you wouldn't be human if you weren't nervous about it.
Were there any other drivers in particular that you enjoyed fighting with in these cars in particular?
We had the most, I think the biggest competitor we had was the Jaguar team, not the Tullius team, but the Walkinshaw team, and then the Hulbert Porsche team. There were a number of really good teams, but I'd have to say this car had an edge, just like that car had an edge. And you know, I feel that I was very fortunate to be involved in both of these programs, and they're highlights of my racing career.
Well, both of you, thank you very much. We are honored to have both you guys here tonight. We're going to take one last look at a modern Nissan performance car over here in just a second. But before you guys go, want to let everybody know we're going to have John back on the show tomorrow night after his autograph signing here at the Mitty. We'll roll his 240Z in tomorrow night now that it's running. We'll take a little bit closer look at that. But tomorrow I want to talk a little bit about sort of you as a driver, and we have some historic footage of you in commercials back in the day. So I want to talk a little bit about that tomorrow night. So join us again tomorrow night. It's going to be right around 7:30 is going to be the show, but about 6:30, John will be signing autographs right here in the tent. So come by and get any of your Nissan memorabilia signed, or if you've got a jury summons, John will be happy to take care of that for you. So yeah, guys, thanks very much. And let us take a look finally at this Nissan GTR. This is kind of where it all went. Where's my Nissan marketing guy? Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, man. Ethan Snyder from Nissan, everybody. Get the man a microphone.
Ethan. One of my colleagues, a great dude.
So,
can I just say one
Absolutely.
It's being an employee of Nissan and hearing John Morton speak tonight. I'm just blown away.
Dude, how do you think I feel?
It's very, I got to say, for those of us who work at the company, to hear about the history, hear about the competitiveness and the passion that you guys who are the pioneers and really established the performance credentials of our brand, it's wonderful for us to be part of something that's so big because of your efforts in the past. So thank you very much, Don. It's an honor for us. Thank you.
I mean, there was literally a table covered with barbecue chicken and beans here half an hour ago, and now that we're talking to guys about GTP cars. So that's that's what's amazing about this world, that you guys are so passionate about this history, and all of this history kind of eventually comes to this. I mean, this is Nissan's modern performance supercar essentially. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how we get from a 510 to a GTP car to 300ZX turbo Trans Am cars to this today. What is the DNA of racing that Nissan takes and puts in their performance cars?
First it's inspiration. We look at the passion, the competitiveness that our racing history brought, and we try to bring that to production. The amazing thing about the GTR is that despite the world-class, world-beating performance of it, it's a supercar for anybody, anywhere, and anytime. You can hop in this car and enjoy it, drive it daily. Many of our owners do. But at the same time, if you want to go do a track day or a Great Canyon run, it's got the performance there. So I think being able to really enjoy a car and experience the performance of it is one of the major lessons we've got out of our motorsports history. That's
right. And we actually, I was watching our social media feed here, and Brian Heitkoder was watching our feed earlier. One of your factory Nissan drivers out there watching. So that's how involved Nissan is. That just out there watching this show are other guys who have had that experience with the company. How much does departments and the marketing departments talk a lot? What's the communication back and forth between you guys on a corporate level?
It certainly depends on the car and the segment that you're working in. For sure, with our sports cars, with the Z and with the GTR, we absolutely look back and work closely with the racing teams and with our motorsports group for inspiration and guidance as we develop new product. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thanks for bringing it out. There's cars like this all over here at the Mitty this weekend. Is this car going to be on display somewhere?
All weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be up here at the top of the hill, though, right?
So. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So if you're anywhere out there, if you're anywhere in the southeast and you're not at the Mitty this weekend, like these folks are, tell them what idiots they are for not being here tonight, folks. Yeah. This is literally the coolest place I could imagine being on a Friday night, and I saw the Avengers last night. So that's how awesome it is having this stuff, being involved in this stuff, having a company like Nissan involved. So for John Morton, for Dave, for Ethan, I want to thank everybody who came out tonight to watch us live. I want to thank everybody online tonight who joined us on a very, very special night for the show. Usually we are on Wednesday nights. Thanks very much to our friends at CRC Industries, to Lee Grimes from Coney. I think he went back to close his booth up. To our friends from Autobooks, Aerobooks. If you're watching us live, we're going to have more live coverage from the Mitty this weekend. We'll be on again tomorrow night. We'll have John Morton back in his 240Z, his freshly re-engined 240Z. We might have some live coverage from the Skid Pad Challenge on Sunday, but we're going to be bringing you guys as much live coverage as long as our data plan holds out. We'll be going live. And but again, don't watch it online unless you have to. Get out here and experience this in person, because this is whatever era of racing you like. It's here. It isn't just one era that you're going and seeing modern cars or historic cars. You're seeing everything here, and it is having the ass driven out of it. That's what's going on here this weekend. It's impressive to watch. All right, folks, thank you very much for coming tonight. From all the people at Grassroots Motorsports Magazine, I'm JG Pasterjack. Thanks for watching GRM Live, presented by CRC Industries. Thanks to the folks at Nissan. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much.